quarantine in New Jersey, so it's getting warmer, and we're looking forward to more things opening up. So I'm doing well. Thank you for having
That's
me.
good. I didn't realize you're in New Jersey. I'm here in Philly, so we're not that far away.
Oh yeah, all right. So we're in the same boat, as they say.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, at least, people, I mean, they let people go to the beach, right? I mean, that was kind of super important for the holiday.
They did, yeah. I drove down to Asbury Park, and I kind of came back up along the coastline, back towards where I live, and I was just seeing like what was going on. It was definitely more crowded. The beach clubs were a little weird. There were people there, but certainly not what you'd expect from a Memorial Day weekend. But it's better than being, in our house. So little by little, we're crawling out.
No, totally. So, why don't you take the opportunity to like explain who you are, where you're from, what your professional journey's been up until this point, so that people can kind of understand where you're coming from.
Absolutely. So we're an MSP in New Jersey. I've been doing this for probably about 14 years. Always did managed services, never did the break fix thing. So we kind of came in on the clean side of the industry. About 8 years ago now, Hurricane Sandy hit our area pretty hard, and like the eye of that literally, like I think, went over like the roof of our office building, and we learned a pretty painful lesson in managed services, and that business continuity, disaster recovery is not automatically built in. And in that case, we had no electricity for 10 to 14 days. So we learned quickly that cloud was going to be a major part of that. And we pivoted at that time. There was an opportunity that was kind of handed to us. We partnered with a great vendor, and we've been a cloud solutions provider since then. So that kind of brings us up to this journey. One of the things that I learned during that was it was pretty easy to move our existing clients over to cloud. They saw the value and kind of lived through the pain. But as the couple years after that, it was a little harder for us to sell cloud to prospects because the price point was higher. And we started losing deals based on price. I had a tough time conveying value. And that's when I changed up our sales process, and I invented audit sales presentation system. It was really designed just for us as an MSP to use. And I'm in a bunch of peer groups. I let those other MSPs convince me to let them use it, and then eventually we realized we had a good product. So it's what I use. It's what a lot of other MSPs use to sell, keep things simple. And that kind of brings us to this, current climate in our journey. What we're seeing right now in terms of a crisis and an opportunity is not that much different than what we saw in 2012, where there's an opportunity to really do some good work for the SMBs out there that need us.
Yeah, so let's zoom backwards then. Everybody always talks like tries to compare this time with 2008 financial crisis, right?
Yeah.
But Sandy, I almost forgot about it, Frank. I mean, I remember it now like it was yesterday, but I almost tried to black that out of my mind. So for the people who weren't, like, listen, every part of the country has their thing, right? I mean, middle states have tornadoes a
Right.
lot, and there's hurricanes down the coast here and stuff like that. But let's talk about between 2008, between Sandy, and between now. Well, what are the similarities there, right? Because I mean, everybody thinks of these as economic downturn times. So from a sales perspective, I mean, it's four times the amount of work, right?
Right. I think this, one thing we have to look at it is when you sell solutions as an MSP to the SMBs, in good times when things are working, what people expect, right? It seems to be that in the times of crisis, that's where opportunities blossom, right? That's where you find out if your plan worked or not. And for us at the time in 2012, what we sold to our clients failed them. And it became really, it didn't fail them in a sense that like I was selling bad product. It was that I failed to explain to them the value of business continuity and disaster recovery. And I think in 2012, they didn't really have a great solution. Cloud was just starting out. I didn't have anything to sell to them at the time. And when I say it failed them, I remember one client, he summoned me to his office. Should have been a 15-minute ride. It took me 2 hours to get there, driving around trees and telephone poles. And he's yelling at me. We're standing in front of the server like it's a dead body, but it's dry, it's backed up, it's, there's nothing wrong. We unplugged it from the wall. He's like, I need this server to work. And I said, you have no electricity. And it was almost laughable. I said, I'm sorry. He goes, I pay you X thousands of dollars a month. I want this to work. And at that moment, I said, I'm either going to solve for this or I'm going to lose out. Someone else is going to get my business. So that's when I pivoted quickly. So what happened recently, I, during the sales process, like we would mention, business continuity, and more than one prospect would say to me, hey, well, we have a generator at the office. I said, okay, touche. But you know what? What happens when you can't get to the office anymore, right? Because that's what we just saw. You're not allowed to go to your office. If you have a generator, good for you. Now again, we failed, right? Now for us, I say we as in a broad sense. For us, we were very lucky because we sell almost exclusively a cloud solution, and our clients send us some really nice, emails and notes saying, thanks so much for selling us this, because for us it's business as usual. We've been working from home or wherever for all these years. So thank God, because we haven't had much of a negative impact. So it made me feel really good. However, we do know that there's a lot of SMBs out there that are hurting, right? Whether their own MSP failed them or they didn't have an MSP. And that's where I see the opportunity, right? There's an opportunity for us as MSP community, and we have an obligation to the SMBs, right, to sell them the right solutions to make sure that they can continue to run. Because as far as I'm concerned, small businesses hold together, the economic fabric of the country, and they deserve better, from the MSPs. We should be doing it.
100%. Are you comfortable sharing with the people watching this today? So it sounds like you were selling traditional premise-based stuff like everybody was back in 2012, Sandy time. What did you pivot to? Do you mind sharing?
Absolutely. Yeah. Proud of our relationship to this day. So, my search led me to a bunch of different vendors. And at the time, there was, you probably remember the hallways at the trade shows were all cloud something. And a lot of them, had a cute logo and they got some dollars and hope for the best. And I found one, OS 33. And I like them, and for a bunch of reasons. Number one, they had been doing it for about like 14 years at the time directly. So they had business. So they had skin in the game. They had current clients. That was one. Two is they focused primarily on the financial services market, which is what we focus on. So they understood the compliance and the high level of security that was required. They were in New York, so they kind of understood our metropolitan area, fairly well in terms of like what the expectations are. And they wrote the software to manage it all, which was important because trying to do these multi-tenant type environments is complicated if you don't have a way. So I jumped in with them. I had signed the partner deal maybe like a month before Hurricane Sandy hit. And I figured it was either going to go really well or really bad, right? I had a product and I was like, well, here we go. We were going to start selling it. And I sold so much of it. I think we're one of their like top 5 partners, today. They're very good to us, and it's been a wonderful relationship. We've grown along with them. But yeah, OS 33.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to know everybody's using different stuff. So you never know. So all right, post Sandy, right? It's kind of like the time that we're in now, right? We're coming maybe out of COVID, possibly. What was the sales process that that you went through then? And then after we kind of understand that, I'd like to understand how that matured into what's happening now today, because I'm sure it didn't happen like that. There had to have been a maturity process here.
Yeah, not at all. Back then, my process was that my marketing was really good, and then my deliverable sucked, right? So my marketing got people to raise their hands. I'll give Robin Robbins all the credit for some great marketing. And usually it was, hey, schedule an assessment with me, and I'm going to communicate to you what you should do. I'm going to educate you. But my sales process, really, what it ended up being was the proposal. Because I couldn't figure out how to cobble together all the myriad, data that I would get. I'd show up with a proposal. And it was the easy way out because, again, the presentation wasn't very good. Most people didn't question like, hey, where's the assessment? Except for one person called me out on it. I remember a lady, she said, well, where's the assessment? And I could feel my face getting red. And I said, well, what I did was I kind of just skipped forward. Like I assessed everything and this is the solution. And she wasn't buying it. I didn't get that deal.
So
But
what like did you like I know there's popular tools out there, rapid fire, stuff like that.
yeah.
What was the assessment? Like what did you do? Did you
Yeah, I
just
used to
do a
use
site walkthrough?
I used rapid fire tools. I would, do some, data gathering back then. It was perfect because a lot of those environments were like small business server environments you could scan. But I would end up, with a thick report that to me wasn't salesy enough. So I couldn't present it. I didn't know how to translate it and pull in all the other data points. And so I would just go right to the proposal. And I was losing a lot of deals based on price. It drove me crazy. And
Hmm.
that's when I said, all right, I have to do something different because I was frustrated. I knew I had a great solution. I was like, guys, I could solve the problem we had with Sandy, but there's a huge disconnect between my telling of that story.
Hmm.
So when I created Audit, it was really about simplifying the sales process and making it a little more emotional and really talking to the prospect at their level and not forgetting that, we as MSPs are a whole lot smarter from a technology standpoint than they are. And we're not, our goal and job isn't to give them a PhD in IT. It's to educate them in a way that they could make a simple buying decision and feel good about it. And at the end of the day, it's they who are the ones who benefit. If I can't sell to them, it hurts me, but it hurts them more, right? Because they're missing out on a great solution. So where we've changed it now, the last 4 years or so, is when I do the assessment, my deliverable is not technical at all. In fact, they don't even see the proposal until it's time to sign because all the proposal is just simply a formality. I've already told them how much it is monthly, and I've showed them visually and emotionally, like this is what you would be getting. Here's where you are today. Here's where you could be, but and here's how much it costs. And I was telling a story the other day. I bought some landscape lighting. Right, the guy sold me a vision of what it was going to look like. He showed me my house, did a picture, and he like showed the lights. And I had a vision. I don't even know what brand the lights are. Right, if he showed me a normal proposal and all the part numbers, I probably would have like Googled on the internet and said, oh, I could buy the light for,
On
40 bucks
Amazon or
cheap. Yeah,
something.
and I can do it myself. It would never look the same, but that's what happens. Right. So I said, that's how I sell now. I just sell and I'm not duping them. Right. I'm selling them on what they'll be getting as an end result that they can understand. And sure, if you want to see the bits and bytes, I can go through it, but I don't bring the
Well,
proposal out until it's time
no,
to
no,
sign.
no. Let's zoom back. Let's zoom back. So,
Okay.
prospect calls you today. You're a local technology company. These guys, went through COVID, for example. They didn't have what they needed. They really just didn't have a solution or whatever it was. They call you in. What does that process look like right now? Like
Okay.
walk me through.
Yeah, so we're still in the middle of this right
Yeah, of
now,
course.
right? So we're learning as we go along, but I can tell you that it's been more virtual for us. I don't do a whole lot of scanning things. I feel like that's more of a forensic level audit, and I remind them. I say, hey, I'm trying to do a high level 27-point audit for you, where we can kind of show you where you are today. We can get more forensic, so I can do a good amount of that data collection, so to say, by having a business conversation with them.
Okay.
And as a salesperson, if you stop talking, the prospect will tell you exactly what they'll buy and what their pain points and problems are. So I make notes of those, and those are the areas that I will explore more into. I don't want to, delve into an area that they're not super interested in, even though it's important. I can get to that. So I try to keep it high level. We've done one assessment during this process where I basically listen. Now, what am I hearing right now? Work from home is a fiasco, and so it's all about business continuity. And I've said for a while now, George, one of the things that shifted really quick, cloud came in and went out fast, right? The cybersecurity took over in a major way. It's better clickbait. It got a lot more, media coverage, but it never stopped being a solution. We just stopped really talking about it. And I think what we're going to see is a tilt back in the industry now, in that the vendors who are delivering BCDR are going to become more important, but that's what I'm focusing on. So when we're looking at the assessments, I know right now a pain point is an antivirus, right? It's important for sure, but that's not what people are telling us is important. So we're focusing our assessments a little bit more on the business continuity disaster recovery, showing them like, where the problems are. They're already in the middle of the pain right now. Now is a good opportunity to show them how your solution, could benefit them moving forward.
So during the interaction, right? You're saying you're doing this virtually, right? Doesn't sound like you went to somebody's place, right? You started asking targeted questions.
Right.
How do you extract how much they're willing to pay, or if they have a budget? Is it just a direct question, or is there a more nuanced way to get to there?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So I've always believed you can't let them do the math for themselves, right? So this is the approach we take. Number one, I have to show you where you are today visually. So we use color, red, yellow, and green. Everybody understands the stoplight mentality. I don't have to take 10 minutes to explain that. When they see we call it a summary impact page, there's actually no writing on it. It's just the colors. I say, this is where you're at. And the people who see a lot of red and yellow go, oh man, like what is, and they lean forward. They never used to do this. And they go, oh, like, what does this mean? I want to know more. And I say, oh, okay. And then what they do is they look down and we do the math for them because we score it from 0 to 100, right? I have to make it easy for you to figure out, well, like, where am I? Where is all this red, yellow, and a couple green boxes? What does this mean? So if I tell you you scored a 27, you know where you are now on a scale.
Mm-hmm.
Then what I do is I always ask them, what are you spending? Now, I know from experience that my best prospect is somebody else's client, right? I want people who are working with an MSP because it's easier for me to get them to pay the money monthly with me because they're already doing it.
They're already conditioned, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't always happen that way. But if you tell me I currently spend $2,000 a month, I'll make the math easy for us, and you scored a 50, I just simply say, hey, that's like spending $4,000 a month. You just get half of what you should have, right? And so we do the math.
Is it really that easy? You're making it sound too easy, Frank.
And here's what the example leads to. And even if they like doubt my math or they're like, well, it's not really a straight line, I say, here's the conclusion that you can draw. Either number one, you're not getting what you're paying for, right? Which in that case, you would agree to say, yeah, I'm paying, $2,000 a month, but I'm only getting half of what I need, right? Or you're spending enough money, or you're not spending, I'm sorry, or you're not spending enough money. So, a lot of times we say, yeah, you told me you're spending $800 a month and you scored a 23. And they go, yeah, work out again. Well, we're paying for it. I said, yeah, you're just not paying enough. So what I'm doing there is I'm already planting the seed for the money talk, right? Because I know my solution is going to cost more money. However, I'm showing them you went from a 23 to a 97, and now they immediately can understand that yes, your solution is $3,500 a month, but it solves for all the problems. There's a lot of green boxes there.
You've really de-technicalized, if that's even a word.
Yeah.
That's my word, I guess. You've really taken that out of this process. You've made it into more of a, well, hey guys, this is really a 1, 2, 3 thing. I don't need to over evangelize here. This is it.
Nope. That's exactly what I do. I jokingly say I sell green boxes. And when I do my business reviews, if we sit down and I use the same exact report with clients, and they're used to it now, every quarter or whatever the frequency is, they see the report. God forbid I show up, there's a yellow or a red box. We don't focus on the green because they're like, we're not going to go through all this. We know this is fine. What's this red box? Like, they're mad. Like, oh, what is this red box? And I go, hey, this is, and who knows, like there's a lot of these days, a lot of cybersecurity stuff, that we're introducing. So I'd say, well, hey, you should, I'll throw one out there. We signed up as a partner with Huntress, right? Great solution. Show up with a red box on there. What is this? I very simply explain it. And they always go, how much is this? And I go, I'm glad you asked. And I have a proposal that I don't lead with. I go, it's $3 more a month per workstation. All right, let's do it. If they say no, the next business review, that red box is still there. Number one, I've covered my butt because they know that I've we talked about it in the previous review. That red box will bug them. And eventually they'll go, all right, let's turn that green. And
so this is what you meant by making it emotional, right? You're literally keying it. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. So let me ask you a question then. What was your percentage close, like, if you met 10 people and, 2 people close, right? 20%. So
Yeah.
what was your percentage close before this model? And since now after you've implemented it, what is it now?
So I could tell you, I made the cardinal sin back in the day is I used to lower my price down to make the
Mm,
sale.
yeah.
So I don't know what my exact percentage was. Like the real percentage was probably would have been like 10 to 20%, with qualified prospects, but it was higher because I would lower my price and then eventually they would buy from me. It's like the worst thing you can do as an MSP. You're taught not to do that, not to price it wrong and don't lower your price down. Now I would say my closing rate with the right process, 80%. And you know what I do if they say to me, well, look, we really want to use you, but we don't want to spend that $3,500 a month that you're pitching. Is there anything we can do? I bring the sheet back out, and I say, yeah, let's figure out which of these green boxes we can flip them back to red or yellow and we can lower the price. And you'd be
Mm.
surprised. They go, well, no, we don't want to do that. Oh no, that I definitely want to give up. So a lot of times they come to the conclusion, they go, okay, you know what? Let's do it. And because I'm simply showing them that I can't lower my price. I wasn't lying about it. Like I wasn't like, well, I can take 10% off, but you'll get the same stuff. I simply say, let's just remove some things. And they
So
don't really want to do that.
do you play the, hey, if you sign on for more years, I give you a better price, or is that not even part of the equation?
I do 3-year agreements right out of the gate anyway. I just simply tell them, I say, listen, if you're looking to do this short term, there's an investment that we make in you. This, not what we're looking for a long-term relationship. So I always lead with this is our most aggressive pricing. If we go backwards, it's only going to go up in price.
Hmm.
I think I had one person I can remember in recent years that said it's okay. We want to do a 1 or a 2-year deal because we're concerned about being locked in. I was like, okay, it's 10%. In fact, I had to make a number up because I wasn't even sure like what to go to because we're just so used to people taking the 3-year price. So I increased it and they paid me more money and a year went by and they're still a client. So it was win-win for both of us, I guess.
So how much more difficult than now, right? Like 20, like tell me how 2019 was for you, because by all
Yeah,
accounts, the economy was on fire. I
absolutely.
mean, people were just swiping the card, right?
Absolutely. 2019 was our best year yet. Sales, I forget our exact numbers, but our revenue was up and our income was up about 35-40% across the board. We had a great year. People were in buying mode. We had high hopes for 2020 that it would continue, roll right over. We had the whole Windows 7, end of life thing, and people were going to be replacing hard drives or I'm sorry, computers, into, January, early part of the year. And that buying trend would continue. And, this hits, no one even could predict it. And I think what's changed right now for sure is the value, right? Existing clients are looking to make sure they're getting the value, which we talked about, like, am I getting what I'm paying for? So like the sales presentation that we do, I think is more important now than ever because you could show the value. If you're doing a business review with your client, you want to be able to remind them of what you're delivering to them. And if it's a prospect, I think when people are buying now new, they're most certainly making sure they're getting, value for their dollars. They're way more careful where they're spending it because, of what's going on and there's a certain amount of unpredictability.
So I have Lisa who piped in here with the question. She said, I was pitching to a prospect and they felt that the red boxes were too hard or they didn't agree with the coloring system. How do you offset that situation?
So I've never had anybody say that to me directly. I think that depends who you're pitching to. Like I'd say 90% of us are pitching to a business owner or an office manager, someone who's the decision maker there. And I found they appreciate that. Every once in a while, a larger prospect might have either an internal IT resource or some other expert or friend who's going to sit in on that, and then they may challenge you. Yeah, I give the quote because there's always a friend or a guy, right? Everybody's got the guy,
Yeah, my
and
cousin Timmy. Yeah, he's gonna come in and help. Yeah.
yeah, he knows more than you. And so you could be challenged on it. And you know what? That's fine because I never do the presentations without having, backup material. I'm not making this up, right? I'm not just like put in a bunch of red and hope they believe me. I do have the backup. So, whether I'm using Rapid Fire or Lion Guard or another product like that, to scan, or dark, ID Agent to scan for dark web stuff, I do have the empirical evidence. My experience is that 90% of the prospects just don't care. They don't want to see that. They don't understand it. The other 10% is I'm guessing what this falls is someone who's a little more technical, and really what they're saying is, I want to see why this is red. Like, I don't totally believe you. And that's fine too. And you break out the the empirical evidence, and you can show them and say, here's the conclusion that I've drawn. And you know what? It's only three things, right? I mean, it's pretty simple. It's either red, yellow, or green, right? We can't really fight much about that, right? It's either, if it's not green, it's not red, it's in the middle, it's yellow.
So let me just, for the sake of being totally transparent with everybody on the call,
Yep.
Like, give us an example of a yellow versus a red versus a green. Like, pick a category and just spell it out for us.
I'll use antivirus, right? So if you go around, to an environment and there's 10 computers, let's say you even just do a sampling, you look at 6 of them or 5 of them, and there's all different versions of AV, and some are expired and 2 don't have any antivirus, right? To me, that's like a red. I'm going to come up with a summary bottom line statement and say, you're running various versions of antivirus that are unmonitored and some are expired. Done. That's bad. That's a red in my mind. Green, hey, we've got Sentinel-1 rolled out, to all the machines, and it's being monitored by your provider. That's awesome. Yellow, hey, maybe you have an on-prem antivirus solution, and it's rolled out, it's consistent, but there's no monitoring of it, let's say, like it's out there, but no one's really watching to see if there's alerts or any viruses. To me, that's the nuances. You can come up with other ones yourself, but it's pretty simple to fit them neatly in those 3 categories.
Right on. So I got a question. What's up, Mario? Asked a question here. He said, sorry if I missed it, but do you give them this audit report after the meeting, during the meeting, before the meeting? Like, at what point are they seeing documentation from you?
Yeah, so I follow a 3 meeting process. So meeting number 1 is where I sell the audit, and I usually do the fact finding during that same meeting. We could talk more about it if you have another question about it, but I always sell it because I believe there's value here, and I've got a much more engaged prospect if they pay for it than if I give it away for free. So first meeting is about that fact finding in their office. Second meeting I like to have in my office. I like to control the environment. I like them to see that, we've got an office and a process and people here, and I get their attention a little bit more because they're not checking email and distracted.
Yeah.
I bring them there and I do the presentation, and I use my audit report. I don't take the proposal out at all. My audit report has on my proposed solution, it does show what the monthly is. So let's say it's $3,500 a month. They don't see how I got to that number, so I don't give them the recipe on how to make the sausage. I simply say, here's the sausage. We go through the report. A lot of times at that moment, they're not ready to make the decision. I schedule my 3rd meeting, and I say, this is the decision-making meeting. And for me, I usually always give a discount when I sell the audit. So as an example, like if I sell it for $997, I might discount it. I might say, hey, we're having a pre-summer special. It ends end of May. I'm going to give you $500 off. So it's actually $497. If you use us, however, I'll credit you the full $997 against the onboarding project. Otherwise, you just pay us $497. So what I do is I set that 3rd meeting up as either I'm going to give you $997 or you're going to give me $497. Either way, you keep the audit report. You never get my proposal. I'm not going to give you the proposal so you could shop around and someone can Google, all over and go, I can get the firewall for $6 cheaper, that kind of thing. So they get the report. It's our professional opinion. They get to see exactly what they get for us and how much. I just don't explain what I'm giving to you. So they go back to their current MSP, and this happens too. A lot of times I get to that 3rd meeting and they go, we are so upset. And I go, why? They go, because we met with our current MSP and we told them, we're spending $2,000 a month, and we scored a 27. And then they started scrambling and giving us proposals and telling us, well, yeah, we could sell you this, or we can upgrade your antivirus, or we can upgrade the firewall. And they get mad about that because they figure, if we never asked you about it, it would have been just same old, same old. Like they expect their MSP to be more proactive and explain that to them. So
Yeah, it's
that's
very
how that's how
no,
I
it's
get.
that's actually a very good view. I mean, for years people would pipe in all these line items and parts and try and like smush together all like 30 things in order to get to the price at the bottom. And then or the
Yeah.
customer's like, well, what exactly is the price for this piece? Right. And then all of a sudden you're like, why'd you key in on just antivirus or just this?
Yeah.
Like, so what happened, and this actually comes in a question from Jonathan here. He's like, what's your qualifying process look like before you even go down this road, right? Do you how do you get to the point where you decide I'm going to put this 3 meeting process in place, or do you or you say, you know what, this isn't a good fit, let's just not do this?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is it starts with your marketing, right? And making sure that you're targeting the right people. So let's assume that that's, you've got that nailed down, right? You've got some people now raising your hands. We're driving them to our website. Our website's very clear. Our call to action is schedule an assessment, right? That's what we want you to do. We don't give you 500 other things to think about. It's schedule an assessment. And what I find is that charging people for the assessment is a good qualifier. If I've got the right marketing and the right message, and then they agree to pay for the assessment, I've got a really good qualified prospect that has a high probability to close, especially if
So,
they have a current
so
MSP.
just pause right there and I'll let you finish the rest of your thought. Your assessment's about $1,000, right?
Yep.
So how many people, of the 100% of the people that come through your marketing, your website, your leads, how many of them actually pay? Like, what's your prospect to the odd
90%, 90%, because I don't tell them the price the first, before we go there on meeting one. We do some qualifying questions. Like there's some questions like how many years do you have? What are you looking to do? We want to make sure they're a good cloud fit, because I haven't sold an on-prem server and I can't tell you how many years, and no prospect's going to convince me to do it. I'll just pass on the opportunity. I mean, I think there's other MSPs that will do a better job for them and they should get that business. But those are the basic qualifying questions that we'll go through. If that is a good fit, then what we say is, hey, we'd like to, let's book the first meeting. We'll come on site. We'll explain our process. That's when I tell them, it's a paid audit. Here's what it is. I give them a audit consent form that they sign off on. I kind of say, you ever go to the supermarket, you buy something and you find out that one item was like $20 when you thought it was like three, and I don't want to say you're too embarrassed, but you kind of feel weird, like, oh, never mind. I'm going to put this back or stick it on the shelf with the gum. So I think a lot of people get to that point and think, I don't know if I want to spend, the $500, with the discount, but I'm going to do it. We're going to buy now. And, it's not really pressure. I like to think of it more as, a limited time offer. Like I'm trying to, get them to make a quick decision. And a lot of them will do it and they see it, hey, there's a discount here. I could get $1,000 credit towards a project. And that's how we'll get them to do it. Only a couple I can remember didn't want to sign and we left. I said, okay, I'm sorry. This is our process. What I said to them, I go, what I do is not worth zero. And what I deliver to you is not worth nothing. I said, you don't want me to do a freebie job. I'm going to just wing it. And I said, I know your time's not worth anything. And few of them still said, well, we don't want to spend $500. I said, okay, there's other MSPs out there, but it doesn't happen often. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I probably should have asked this question earlier, but do you mind sharing with the crowd how big your MSP is?
Yeah. So last year we closed up just about at 2.8 million in revenue. We have 9 people in our company, and we have about 63 clients or so on OS 33, and probably about another 20 that we do some managed firewall or managed communication type stuff. So most of our business is cloud.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you some off-topic questions. It's worth mentioning because we're in the middle of it.
Yep.
Did any of your customers come back and ask you to modify, adjust, or defer any of your payments, because of the coronavirus situation?
That's a great question. So one thing I can tell you is you can never predict what's going to happen, because we have some nonprofits in here with some really, really good nonprofit clients. And in my mind, I thought that they would be the first ones. They all had to furlough some people. Couple got, terminated as we got a little bit farther along into this. So I was prepared for some of them to come to us, and not one of them asked for anything. In fact, we did send an email out early on, and I wanted to set the message like, listen, other MSPs are out there marketing and saying, hey, if anybody needs help, which is admirable. I think that is a great message to send. But I said to my clients, I'm just letting you know I'm not doing that. I'm focusing on you. Anything you need, or you're our client, you come first. Prospects will come later, and that actually elicited a lot of people saying, thank you so much for the platform we're on. It's really worked great. We would be in so much worse shape. So it gave me a good sense that I've done good work. And a lot of the ones who I thought would ask for discounts accepted the fact that they need this technology now more than ever. And I think they were almost embarrassed to ask for a discount, because they're like, we're using you now more than ever. How could I ask you to give it to us for free? I had a couple of clients. I was surprised. I They asked me for, discount or forgiveness. And one or two I forgave. A couple I said, look, we'll defer your payment. You got to pay us eventually. So we did it on a case by case basis, but it was not as many as I thought. And I really think it was primarily because they have the right solution now. We learned from Sandy, and because they saw it working. It's like, how can you ask for a discount on something that's working for you? Like, you don't want to break it. And I think we were just in a good position for that. I mean, no one would ever have predicted we'd ever have this, period of time in our business life where I would get this kind of feedback. But to see it was rewarding for me as an MSP. And I know other MSPs are like that too. I mean, I think we are all really driven by an innate desire to really want to do what's right for SMBs. And sometimes it's frustrating because we can't get them to buy the right solutions. And then it's times like this where they realize, oh, now I know why you wanted to sell me that solution. You go, I told you so. But it's hard now because now it's like after the fact, right?
So what did you, yeah, because you're primarily like virtual desktop in the cloud kind of thing. I know a lot of people have different concepts of what remote working are, VPN and all this, whatever.
Yep.
Did you pivot to charge more, less? How did you factor in home computers that weren't necessarily covered? Like, how did that all work out?
Yeah, we had to figure out what our messaging was pretty quickly, because we said if we wait for our clients to tell us like what it's going to be, we're going to take them for a ride. So we told the clients, listen, we recommend that if you're going to send people on to home computers that we've never touched before, that we onboard them like we normally would. We charge a fixed fee to do that. But we said, it's the right thing to do is what I recommend. And you could always remove them later on down the line. So, maybe you add them for 3 months and decide, let's take Mary's computer off the plan. But I said, that's the right thing to do. The other option is we'll certainly help support it, but we treat it as what we call agentless support. So we just charge hourly. So if you want us to work on a computer we've never touched, you don't want to put it on our plan, it takes 2 hours. We'll just send you an invoice. Most of the people followed our advice and said, let's onboard. So we probably onboarded, I would say somewhere between 50 and 60 more computers. So it wasn't that I raised the price or anything, but we generated more revenue, right? Because we added another 50 to 60 managed workstations, and we're helping them. And it makes it easier for us to do our job and keep them safe and secure. So that was what we primarily saw. To be honest with you, I don't see many of these clients taking these computers off anytime soon, because I think the new normal for us now is a work from home concept is going to be, a part of our normal work life now, right? Where people aren't going to be like, well, if something should happen, we'll cross that bridge. Now they're like, now we want to be prepared. Just like with Sandy, people bought generators, are a little more prepared now.
New Jersey is one of those states because because of the whole proximity to New York, right? I mean, for some reason they're still going to be under lockdown for some time, it seems.
Yeah.
New Jersey just always sandwiched in between. Quick question from David here. He's like, hey, can you quickly just re-summarize the 3 meeting concept that you do? Like,
Yeah.
what do you accomplish in 1, 2, and 3? And how quickly does that process occur?
Yep. Meeting number one is I call it fact finding meeting. It's where a discovery session where I'm going to sit down and find out how I can help you. And I do a lot of listening. I do a lot of note taking. It takes 60 to 90 minutes. And I do tell them, we mentioned on our website too, your current IT provider won't even know we were there. So I don't want it to be intrusive. I don't need the admin password. I'm not like knocking the place apart and, setting off the alarm. That's meeting number one. Before I leave, we book meeting number two. I never want to leave and chase somebody down. Meeting number two, within a week, I find is a good amount of time. One, because if we wait too long, it's hard to get that meeting. But number two, typically a week. And I call that the presentation of findings meeting. That's in my office. You guys come by. We're going to show you. Sometimes it ends up into a little demo. I might show them, sell some sizzle of the cloud. So, we have the big, screen in the conference room. I can show them a couple features and really get them thinking. And then the third one, I say, you know what, let's book the meeting and, you can make a decision, whether we have a basis to move forward. And then sometimes I'll joke around. I'll say, we'll figure out if you're going to give me 500, I'm going to give you 1,000. And we kind of, ha, but it psychologically, it sits there with them. And again, about a week. So about 3 weeks or so for the whole process for us. It's a consultative sale, and it takes some time. That 1 week between meeting 2 and 3 is pivotal because sometimes they take the audit report back and they show their partner. They're like, Joe, you got to see this. And what's cool is Tom can tell Joe because this is written in a language they can understand. It's simple, right? Previously, the only language they ever spoke was the last page proposal bottom line number. 5,000 is greater than 4,000, therefore that's bad, right? Now they go, look at this. We're at a 27, we could be at a 97. And so about 3 weeks for that process.
So now it sounds like that second and third meeting, or maybe even first meeting, are they now all happening virtually? Like, is that the MO for the time being until like things get a little bit calmer?
Yeah, it's a great question because we're still in the middle of this. We've onboarded one client now completely virtually, but they were in our pipeline already. So they don't really count. Like they were like thinking about it. And then when this happened, they were like, oh my God, we should have made a decision, 2 weeks ago, but we were able to virtually get them migrated and help them out. I haven't actually done a virtual meeting yet for a prospect fully. We've set a couple up, and we're still trying to figure out what we want to do. I can tell you what we have done is a bunch of business reviews with existing clients. And here's what we've changed. The audit report has always been a PDF format. But one of the problems we have now virtually is, PDF is vertical in portrait mode, right? And it's a little hard to scroll through. It loses a little bit of its punch when, someone's watching you do that. So we changed the output in audit now where you also have an option to generate a PowerPoint slide deck. So now what I do is I hit, output PowerPoint, and in 20 seconds, I have a whole slide deck, all the same information, but now it's formatted. All I have to do is say present and I go through it. So we've done, I think, 6 business reviews with existing clients to discuss 1 or 2 solutions maybe we think they might want to add right now, or to validate like what we were already doing. And I can tell you they love the format. I mean, we're all doing Zoom meetings anyway, right? It's just a whole lot easier and I can step through it. So that's something that we did. We've got some great feedback from some of our partners that's helped them as well. But we have not, truly gone through an entire assessment process yet on a prospect, mostly because New Jersey is still somewhat locked down.
So David comes back again. He was the one who asked about, hey, can you help us summarize your meeting process again?
Yep.
So his question is, if the second meeting is the presenting of the story, right? And that ultimately comes with what your offering is, right? Hey, here's how much it's going to cost to do it, to remediate, and here's the package. He's trying to understand what the purpose of meeting 3 is, right? So maybe
Yep.
There's a gap in what, like, it sounds like, at least from what I gather, is that in meeting 2, they need to take that information back and either chew on it or present it maybe to their existing provider or their other, decision makers in the company. And that gives them time to review. But give us, your feedback on meetings 2 versus 3.
Yeah. So you just really captured the essence of it. What I just found now, I've closed in meeting 2 before, but I expect I will. I don't always do it. And so I usually realize I need a third meeting. And what happens between meetings 2 and 3 is where the emotion kicks in, right? A lot of times they touch base with their existing IT company and say, what the heck, man? And that IT company, I tell them, I go, share it with your IT, share it with another MSP. To your point, we talked about antivirus. Hey, you got 3 options, right? As long as I didn't lie and the AV is really in crappy shape, what are you going to say if you're their MSP? Oh, yeah, well, I can sell you Sentinel One, right? So what you're doing is you're driving the wedge without bad mouthing their current IT provider. It's festering, right? So what I found was that if they can't make a decision to buy in meeting 2, between 2 and 3 is where the magic happens for them without me really doing much of anything. They think about it, they show their partner, they talk about it with the existing MSP. The existing MSP is like, well, what are they pitching to you for $3,500 a month? I
Well,
don't know, but
that's very intriguing because you said your format doesn't line item really anything. Like you have categories,
right,
but you're not really saying, well, I'm using Sophos versus Sonic Wall versus Watch. Like you've
right.
taken all of the technical really away, right?
Just like me, I didn't care what the brand of my landscape lights were. Do you think the attorney you're selling to cares whether it's a watch guard or a Sonic Wall? He doesn't even know what that means. It means something to the MSP that you might displace, and know what he's going to do. He's going to start saying, well, that watch guard isn't as good as Sonic Wall because it doesn't have this, and the attorney is just going to tune it right out. He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. All I did was I showed them red and now it's green. Let the other MSP defend, why it is. I tell people, you better run an audit on your current client before someone runs it on them as a prospect, because then you're going to be sitting there with the report on the wrong side of the table trying to explain why there's a bunch of red and yellow, right?
So I think one thing maybe didn't really come out of this, right? Which is, let's say they decide to come on board. Hey, let's do this. Let's sign. You bring them on, you go to we didn't even talk about what happens after they sign, right? Maybe that's another webinar, but they sign, you do the work. Now they're a customer, now they're running. These quarterly or these customer kind of business reviews is that same format.
Exactly.
And it's literally it's following the same concept as they're progressing forward.
I'll give you an example. Like a lot of times in the initial onboardings, we're not going to replace like the workstations and things. So we love Warranty Master. We think their report pairs perfectly with our report. It's simple, it's easy to understand, it's right to the point. So I might say to them, listen, you've got a bunch of Windows 7 computers still, or these computers are out of warranty. It's a yellow, right? That's what your managed workstation is. But right now, that's not the most important thing to you. It's business continuity. We've got to get you up and running properly in the cloud. So it's possible, they're not at 100 with your solution. Maybe there's a yellow box for that. Maybe they don't want to buy security awareness training. They don't see the value, and maybe they don't want to do dark web monitoring. That's okay. So we have some yellow or red boxes in the sea of green. So when I do the next business review, they see a lot of that green. And again, I didn't invent any of this stuff. I'm just a student of a lot of books and whatnot. And I try to learn from it. They say people are more motivated to go from a 90 to a 100 than they are from a 55 to a 65. And the reason is because they're so much closer to the finish line, and that's success to them, right? So in a business review, again, they came in that way. Now they're used to this report. If they're at a 96 and there's a red or yellow box, they're a lot more likely to say, yes, let's do that, because it gets them closer to the 100, because they're that much closer to the finish line.
Totally psychological.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know it sounds like smoke and mirrors here. Like I'm just like duping people into buying some green boxes. I'm really selling them good stuff, and they validate it for me because they're saying thank you, for the good work you've done. And that's all we're trying to do, is empower other MSPs to be able to sell their solutions more easily, and not necessarily sell it, but it's more educate the prospect so they can make a confident buying decision. Because nobody likes to be sold. People love to buy. I have 100 boxes on my porch right now from Amazon. I buy all the time, but no one sold me.
Amnesia, don't lie. You have it. So Lynette asks, is it possible to get a copy of the audit consent form that you're using And then what do you use? Like, what is the proposal? Like when you're showing that, hey, here's what I'm now offering you. Is that following the green, yellow, red, or is that completely separate?
No, we use Quozal. So, Quote Works or Quozal, same type of thing. It's all line itemed out. It just details, it totals up to whatever I showed them on the audit reports. That $3,500, we've been using that as the example. At that report, if you want to add up all the nuts and bolts, it's going to end up being $3,500 a month. I just don't break that out until it becomes time for them to sell or to sign. Sorry.
Mhm.
It's just a formality at that point. At that point, they're like, it's 3,500. Okay. I don't understand what any of this means anyway. I trust you. Yes, I can give you a copy of our audit consent form. You're supposed to check, local attorney, local state have different laws. Basically, what it does is it says, I'm going to see some stuff. I'm going to take some pictures and make some notes. I'm not going to share that with anybody other than for the purpose of me to put together a report. It's a little bit of a hold harmless, and it says you agree to pay me whatever we'd agreed upon as
Oh,
as
it's
the
almost
price.
like
So
a scope of work kind of.
yeah, it's just a one
Yeah,
pager. I haven't signed it for you. I could provide.
fair enough. So what's interesting is like again going back to the psychological version of this. So how often are you adjusting what's in the red, yellow, green, right? Because obviously you're pivoting, right? So as you're going into new prospects and or as your quarterly or however often these business reviews are happening, how often are these categories changing?
So we do a 27-point audit. What we have found is if we do more than that, we're in the technical weeds, and I can't get through the presentation in an appropriate amount of time. I start losing people. You can do a 9-point. So we have some partners who do like a more focused audit. They'll choose a smaller amount. But the reality is that we could probably come up with a list of hundreds of things you could audit, right, George? I mean, like we can dig into any category, but we're not doing forensic accounting here. What we're trying to do is high level. So I have like templates that we do templates inside our system. And I
I was just about to ask, do you have different audit reports based on vertical? Is a dentist got to get a different one than a lawyer, than a financial guy?
Potentially, yeah. Like a lot of times, I'll do it based around like what's more important to them. So I have one that's a little more cyber heavy. I'll get one that's a little bit more BCDR heavy. But essentially, yeah, I create a couple templates, and then when I meet with the prospect, inevitably we find out some things. Like I don't normally go in thinking the cabling is in bad shape, but if I'm meeting with them and they're telling me how like the network drops out and there's a cat 6 line like dangling over my head out of the ceiling, when I go back, I'm going to adjust. I'm going to find a box on the 27 and I'm going to say, you know what, like the switches are not that important there. I'll take that off. I want to put cabling in, right? So I will adjust on the fly. So when I present, I'm listening. They're telling me what they'll buy from me. I just have to make sure I'm not like a solution looking for a problem, that I'm listening and I repeat it back. So that's how I'll adjust for prospects. For clients, it all just depends. We're pretty loyal to our vendors. So, we're a big Sonic Wall shop and have been for 15 years. Like, I'm not gonna every month change like the vendor and show a red box on a firewall and sell the new one, right? But like Huntress was new for us. So we created a category. They helped us do an infographic and we put it on there. When ID Agent, we met those guys a few years back and dark web monitoring became a thing that showed up on there. So I'd say like once a quarter, there's always something that we will find that we vetted and we believe is a good solution that might show up. So there's like one red or yellow box a quarter.
So
And
yeah. So how quickly, shifting real quick because we're running out of time, how quickly is a person, like a lot of MSPs, it's like owner led sales, but for people who, who want to adopt this method, right? How easy is it for somebody who's doing sales to incorporate?
I think for an MSP, it's all in their own head. MSPs, we're stuck with the curse of knowledge that we know so much, and so we're selling right now like to the eights, nines, and tens, but our prospects are one, twos, and threes.
Yeah.
So a little bit of this for owner-led MSP sales is just believing that this will work and trying it. We recommend trying it on in some business reviews and see what your clients say. If the clients are like, "Oh my God, it's so much easier," you'll have the confidence to then go use it for prospects. For people that are true salespeople, we hear all the time, they go, "Thank God like for you guys because we've been trying to tell the owner of the business that what we're doing is too technical and doesn't work. This makes my life so much easier and it's easier to sell." So I think true salespeople, it's quick adoption. I think for owner-led MSPs, it's easy to use and put together. I just think they need a little bit more convincing because they're still and I'm a tech guy. Like I have a mechanical engineering degree. I didn't go to school for sales. I developed this because I was sick of losing deals. And I'm like, I'm not a great sales guy. I have to figure out a way to force myself as a tech to stop being technical. And this makes me do it. So it's pretty fast adoption. Again, it's just a little bit of a shift in mentality as you approach it.
What's your 60-second best advice for people that suck at sales?
Easily. Number one, keep it simple. So take whatever you're doing and really ask yourself, is your prospect going to understand it? And if they're not, figure out a way to make it simpler for them to understand. Two, make it emotional, right? People buy based on emotion. You've got to figure out a way to elicit emotion from people. And number three, do the math for them. Don't leave it up to them to figure out what solution to buy or figure out how to quantify multiple solutions. You have to show them the math and make it make it very simple for them. And then ultimately, you're telling a story, right? Make it a story because people love stories. And then the sales process doesn't feel like so much of a sales process. They're actually anxious and they want to know how, like, what's the end of the story. Meeting three, like does he get the girl or not, and it makes it kind of fun. And I tell people, even if you don't get the prospect, that's okay, because you've got a really good prospect that you can continue to market to, right? And I've had people say no to me initially that come back 6 months later, and this report drove them crazy. They never forgot the red and yellow and the 27 score, right? So eventually they said yes. So you have a great opportunity, and if they say no right now, to get them later on.
Quick question from Lynette. So again, when do you tell your prospect that you're charging for the assessment? I got to assume up front.
I don't know. I do it in the first meeting when we get there. We always tell them on the phone, we'll come in meeting number one. We'll explain our process. If everything looks good, we can actually start doing the fact finding, that day. So they're aware that we're going to do data gathering and fact finding. When I come there, I have the audit consent form and I say, here's what it costs. Like I always under the assumption like you thought this was free. I don't. A lot of people do it for free, but mine doesn't say free. If they ask me on the phone, we'll tell them no, it's a paid assessment. We can discuss the parameters then. If they say, "Oh, forget about it," it's okay. But in meeting number one is where I tell them, and usually at the point where they're signing the audit consent form.
Where do people find you? How do they get a hold of you? What's the best way to connect?
Yeah, so our website's always the best place, as a starting point. So it's www.audit4it.com. So audit, FORIT.com. You can sign up for a free trial. So we do give you 15 days free, where you can use the system. There's no watermarks. You can generate as many reports as you'd like. We recommend you do a business review, because if you are able to get in front of an existing client, they're not going to fire you because you came in with a different format, and you get some good feedback. And I promise you that they will say, wow, this is so much better than anything you've brought in before. And that should give you some, confidence to maybe use it in your next assessment. You can also download a copy. We have a 28-page sample audit report. So a lot of times people want to know, like, well, what does this audit report look like? What's the deliverable? Download the report. I think at the bottom of our website, there's a form where you can capture that information and get that in your hands and take a look at it, because people are using it out there. And like I said, you don't want one of your clients to hand that to you because someone else ran it, on them as a prospect. So that's the best way to reach out to us. If there's additional questions, you can route it to sales@audit4it.com. And we'll be happy to get right back to you and answer any questions for you.
Awesome. Hey everyone, appreciate you coming again. We're knocking out some really cool topics as we're doing MSP Initiative here. So again, every Tuesdays and Thursdays, 1 o'clock Eastern time, New York time zone, if you would. Join us again next week as we continue the journey. But hey, Frank, really good stuff, man. I really appreciate you coming online, and I know everybody's time's all over the place, but I think it was really good today.
Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for doing this for the community. I think you're doing a great service where you're getting great topics and really helping, other MSPs learn. So, as an MSP, I say thank you as well.
All good. Yes, Lynette, this recording should be online shortly after this at mspinitiative.com. You'll see this with the rest of the videos available, and you can watch whatever you want. Appreciate everyone for watching. Have a good one.
Thanks, George.